Okay, so with pre-release right around the corner, I want to give my final thoughts on Part the Mistveil. Now, for anyone who doesn't want to watch the entirety of the video, to sum it up nice and simply, I think this set is a smash hit, right? It has so much going for it. LSS have really just knocked every aspect of this set out of the park, in my honest opinion. Despite any little nitpicks or gripes I might have with a little thing here or there, the set in its entirety, whether or not you want to be a part of the set through opening, through limited, it is going to drag you in, right? It has such an influence on the meta. It has, again, wonderful aspects, a wonderful limited stylization, and a lot of chase and collectability. So, yeah, one way or the other, Part of the Mistveil will rope you in and will have some sort of impact for Flesh and Blood in its entirety, right? This will definitely shake up the meta. So, yeah, nice and simple. This is their best set. That would be my honest opinion. This is their best set to date, right, out of everything. Now, obviously, the first three sets are wonderful in their own rights, but they're very raw, right? There's a lot of wording, there's lots of choices and decisions that are very much the root beginnings of the game. And Part of the Mistveil appears to, in my opinion, be the culmination where they finally understand exactly what they're doing, right? Especially with a talented set. So in terms of power, I would say Part of the Mistveil is equivalent, if not stronger, than Tails. Now, Tails is a bit of an iffy one, right? Because Fuse is a really busted mechanic, and then, of course, you have Frostbite, but each three of the heroes of Mistveil, in their own right, can do crazy things, and they are super powerful. Now, in terms of the set makeup, again, looking at all the Majestics, looking at all the Legendaries, I don't, in all honesty, think that any of them are a big miss. Even the worst Majestics that come to mind to me, right, are still fun and flavorful and have some sort of impact and niche use, rather than just being mindless pack filler. Now, does that mean they'll be valuable? Who knows? But from my onlook, this set is just very, very meticulously well-rounded, well-crafted, and well thought out. So yeah, Mistveil to me is a fantastic set, and it makes me really excited to see what's to come. Now that's basically my complete overview of the set, but let's jump into some of the actual nitty-gritty. So starting off, the pre-release, right? In fact, more so than the pre-release, I want to talk about the scheduling, right? So the preview sees it May 11th to 13th. Then a couple days later, we have the world premiere, followed by the calling in Tokyo. Then we have the pre-release events, right? Again, you can sort of break this up into a 3-week trajectory, right? Preview, then the world premiere and the calling in Tokyo, then the actual pre-release events, and then the street release. And this window that they've created with these 5-day gaps so that they hit the weekend every single time, to me is problematic, right? Because the way I phrase it, it's this just a mounting bubble as we go through the set to, again, the premiere and calling Tokyo, where it bursts. And then after that, everything sort of really dies down. Even waiting till the pre-release, the discussion, the talk, and deck teching and thinking about what you're going to play, it seems quieter than heavy hitters, right? But in all honesty, I would say that limited for Mistveil is going to be a lot more interesting, at the very least, if not funner, than heavy hitters. So to me, this lull that we're in currently till we actually get the release, not to mention, the wider public having access to boxes, is quite too much of a gap, right? In my opinion. So I would like to see this a bit more condensed. The overlapping of these big events, if we are going to continue down this trend of the release having a big showcasing. Now, we don't know if that's going to be the case with the third set, but I love the idea, right? You go to this location, right? Big, massive event to celebrate every single release. It's crazy to think about that could be a thing. But again, the gap from that to the pre-release to actual boxes hitting shelves and being able to buy it as the wider public versus people who are currently opening and enjoying the product, I think that gap is way too great, right? That it just kills the hype and the buzz, and a lot of people get their fix through watching everyone else open, right? So I think that kind of kills the actual release of the product, because in all honesty, it feels like we're past that, right? The product's out, the product's being enjoyed, every secret has been scraped out, and right, what is there really left other than you opening for your own personal enjoyment rather than this big community excitement? So I think if the pre-release events were pushed closer and then you had that week, or if it was all condensed down, I would enjoy that a lot more. But again, that's sort of my own little nitpicky. Now, pre-release. I don't know how it is elsewhere, but in terms of pricing, I do have somewhat of an issue with this. Now, I understand, stores need to, hey, have a fee because they're hosting the event, right? It's space, it's whatever else they put, refreshments. If they do that as that type of store, then obviously they're going to charge and stuff like that. But my perspective, a box in Australia does not hit the recommended $150 to $160 range, right? It sits at $110 to $120, meaning that I am technically paying half a box for a third of the box and some promo codes, right? To me, it's not really a big enough incentive to enjoy the pre-release. I'd rather get a group of friends together, forego the promo because I know they're going to be relatively easy to pick up elsewhere because they're going to be abundant, and say we'll split the box. Whatever the big hits are, we can split them. We can decide who wants what, and then we can just have a lot more fun as our collective rather than in this circumstance going to an actual event. Now, looking throughout Australia too, the 55 is also interesting because this is may charge up to, but I guess it's not as strictly enforced, which is, again, a curiosity. Now, our tax is baked into things rather than above, so maybe per 55, it's 55 plus 10% because that's our GST, right? So $60 for the cap. But yeah, you can find events from 55 to 65 to 55 to 45 to 50. Right, so it's all hovering around. Now, the 45 I would definitely attend. Right, 45 for a third of the box plus those promos, sure. But at the $55 range, again, I would much rather just buy a box, split up with friends, play in that setting rather than go to the actual pre-release event. But that's, again, just another one of my opinions and nitpicks. Again, depending on pricing where boxes fall in America as well, right? $40 if that's what's generally charged, and a box is $80. Again, is that worth the event, or is it in all honesty better just to buy a box and play with your collective, right? Or invest as your collective. So yeah, I don't know where this sits, right? It feels a bit off because obviously we have the increase to pack, so we had to have an increase to the price point as well. But I don't know, I was more comfortable with the previous range, even though it was less boosters. I think it was 35, so $20 less, right? I mean, I guess in that scenario, $20 for an extra 2 booster packs is really putting me off, right? $10 a pack, basically. So, yeah, I digress. Just a little nitpick. In terms of actual play, I think limited for the Mistveil is going to be absolutely insane, right? Again, they've put their best foot forward to make sure you can absolutely showcase these heroes and what they're capable of by way of the Transcend cards. This is a Primus, is the correct one, but they don't actually show any of the Transcend cards, right? So the Legendary change is fantastic, and I'm curious to see if they do more with that in the future, right, to really amp the power level of limited play versus that of Constructed. And again, the Legendary ruling, meaning that you can only have 1 copy of each, right? So having them in the common slot, having wide access to Chi, and just being able to, again, really show off the 3 powerful effects of each hero, regardless of what equipment or other Chi cards you get, is going to be really sensational. And I think no matter who you play or who you end up building, they're all going to be really fun and interesting to see what comes out of the pack versus what the actual constructed and meta-relevant decks are going to be. So altogether, I do think Limited is, again, very well crafted for Path of Mistveil, right? This is probably their best set, and I really, really vocalize that I want to see Crack Shuffle play continue on and on and on after Bright Lights, right? I was a bit dismissive of heavy hitters, but yeah, their focus on Limited is just evolving and evolving. So again, I think Path of Mistveil really sets a golden standard for what we get going forward. It doesn't have to be as powerful, but the thought and the setup towards the different formats, towards how it affects everyone in the community is what I want to see going forward. Again, if you want to play Limited, it's going to be a blast. If you just want to open and collect, there is wonderful little goodies inside the box for you to find. And if you don't care about Mistveil whatsoever, you're going to have to be forced to care about it because, again, all 3 heroes are going to be meta to some extent, and they're all going to have a big impact on the meta, not to mention the cards that, again, have hits the Majestic slot, right? I mean, Weakest Link is such a fun interaction. Prismatic Leyline as well. Even the Stonewall Gauntlet has its niche uses, and I can see it really affecting some play, right? Making you forcefully break up the chain to get around it. And then the opponents, or the one playing with Stonewall Gauntlet, being able to use their other equipment to reblock, to re-benefit from certain effects. I think altogether, right, there's a lot of interesting interactions. So no matter where you sit in the community, whether or not you care directly about Mistveil and opening Mistveil, it is going to have a knock-on effect, and that is overall fantastic to see. I in all honesty, right, cannot stop raving about how much I really love this set, from its themes to its design to its color palette. Going back to the original Misteria artwork, I'm glad they've made it more vibrant, a bit more colorful, a bit more impactful, and yeah, I really love it. Now, the gold pack, I've already said my piece. I think that the special Marvel variety shouldn't be the rarity it is. It's about 1 in 50, most likely, if not 1 in 100, 150, depending on the actual print run. But using, 100K estimates, 1 in 50 is, that doesn't seem so bad, but it's 1 in 50, but every 50 is 5 cases. So in that scenario, 1 in 50 is 1 in 250 cases, right? Which is astronomical. And I think making it 1 in 5 compared to the rainbow foil could have still been a nice little boon. It would have still maintained its value. I think the Emperor is a bad example of a chase card to do, right? 1 in 10,000 packs, when you really think about how much is being printed, right? Because Flesh and Blood is still relatively a small game, right? Its print runs aren't going to be these monstrous numbers, right? It's questionable whether or not they've even returned to the Monarch Tales Everfest range, right? They're still probably really reined in. And with that in mind, again, I would have liked to see this be a bit more accessible, or have other things in the mix to make it a bit more evenly spread. Because just between the two cards, I do have personal issues with it, and the incentive behind whether or not this is something to open and enjoy versus something to hold. Because again, the gold pack is going to be, at least a little bit, if not substantially greater, than the rainbow foil Enigma versus just the prospect of the Marvel that, again, is so scarce. So I think if they had, added something else to it, again, a guaranteed legendary, the Marvel Heroes or something like that, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. It would have been a more, crack on sight, because you're probably going to get something good. But what they've done is they've taken the Rainbow Foil legendary out of the legendary slot, which makes the Rainbow Foils across the board a lot better. Getting a Emperor Rainbow Foil is absolutely abysmal, right? As your box legendary, as your case legendary. So that is a good aspect. But again, it means that this gold pack, more often than not, is just this little $5 card, right? Because in all honesty, looking at the Emperor, looking at the price it sits at, that's Enigma. Enigma is going to be basically a $5 card, right? So yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. Having one, might as well buy it, because it will be cheap wherever it settles. Don't buy into the FOMO that will definitely exist at the start of release, right? Gold packs, I could probably see them, going for stupid amounts because people want to be some of the first few to crack the Marvel, but they will sit, everything will come down, right? Just give it time. And yeah, beautiful card, but it could have been a little bit more exciting in my honest opinion, right? Adding, again, the other Marvel cards to it would also bump up the value of the Rainbow Foil, right? Because again, it's that ratio that I really don't like, 1 to 50, right? For every one Marvel, there are 50 Rainbow Foils in a young Blitz hero that LSS have now openly admitted to, Blitz being this goofy meme format that's just going to be loose, casual, and fun, which fun is fine, but it's not incentivized, therefore the card value isn't ever going to be a real thing compared to Classic Constructed. So yeah, overall, I love the idea. I think the execution's just a little bit off in my opinion. But other than that, why don't we just go over the cards one more time, right? So the legendaries. All the legendaries to me are fantastic. We have Master of Recurring Nightmares. Again, a fantastic alternative effect for new, especially, again, showing up the end game when you're just cycling through G. You can use your ability, but then you can also hit your opponent's hand, make them a bit less threatening if you don't have that much to play yourself through New's ability, through them, building a deck against New overall, right? Fun for you, not so much for your opponent. Enigmas and the fact that you can make auras instant, fantastic. Again, you can play them to intercept popping on your opponent's turn, protect the valuable stuff you want, or you can have shenanigans and, tie it into auras that have go again. The nice thing too is it's all auras. It's not just illusionist. So a nice freebie is Chains of Emerence. That does have Go Again. That is an aura, and it is a nice debilitating effect to stick on your opponent if you know their deck well enough. Then for Zen, we have, in my honest opinion, hands down the best legendary in the set. So much value, capable of the 12 petal. Again, to compare it to Tunic, 8 Transcend cards plus the Fabled, so 9 if you really want. So this is potentially 9 resources across a game, if not a turn, if you get insanely lucky. So that means that for Tunic, you'd have to last 9 by 3s, 27 turns to get the same value out of Tunic, right? So I think it's phenomenal. It is such a powerful card for Zen. Traverse the Universe, much more respect for this, right? Again, for whatever reason, my mindset was how much you have to really transcend to get value out of this, but it's not. You have to transcend once to get immense value out of this, right? It's a +1 to hand. It's an enabler for all your hero abilities, but more importantly, it's a blue pitchable, right? Just a free 3 resources after blocking your opponents for your swing back turn, right? So you get a little bit of defense, and then you can go into a really powerful turn where you have those extra 3 resources, even if you don't utilize them for your hero ability or other cards. Then we have the Stonewall Gauntlet. I think this one's probably a mixed bag for a lot of people. I really like it. So when it defends attack with greater than its base, so it has to defend a buffed attack. Opposing attacks get -1 for the entire combat chain, forcing your opponent to either close and open up your ability to block with other equipment, or just a blanket negative Art of War, right? I think in either way, it has its uses, especially in certain matchups, especially in obviously wide matchups, and I think that's good enough, especially if you don't need the general criteria of the arm slot, which is, buffing abilities. This is a lot more defensive and, in some circumstances, a lot more useful than what you could potentially normally run, right? Then, of course, we have all the Majestic cards. Again, I love them across the board. Every single Majestic, to me, lands in some way or the other, has just fun, interesting uses, not to mention the actual, class-specific ones are all crazy, right? Big attack, 1,000 years, big attack, new, cripple your opponent, go again, cripple your opponent, right? Zen, draw, cycle, buff tigers, shifting winds, insane. And then even the Mystics levels is fantastic in a blue dominant deck. It altogether has just enabled blue when it should be this detrimental, you're taking resources over power, to just be, you have resources and power now. And that's fantastic, right? Attune in itself is just a nice flexible card. A 5 for 0 block or attack and some knowledge about their deck is definitely beneficial. Now, it's probably the weakest out of them, but I still like it nonetheless. I love the art. Cosmic Awakening is definitely a meme card, especially with the chi ruling. But again, this as a finisher in any of the decks, if you go into the fatigue, right? You have this and 3 chi, and you're just throwing out a 20. Throwing out a 20 for your turn, in all honesty, especially in Assassin, especially in Ninja, seems like just a fantastic amount of damage to be able to do at the end of a game. It is just a significantly better last-ditch effort when you exhaust every other possibility of your deck, because until then, it's a blue pitchfall, and in a pinch, it's a 3 block, right? It's a fantastic late-game imp. Unravel Aggression, if Chi was pitched, draw a card, so it's either a 3 for 5, so you can cycle away something else you want to keep for later, but if you have Chi, it's also a +1. Again, fantastic. Tenant, crazy. Dense Blue Mist, also fantastic, right? Stop all hit effects that can really shut down certain decks. Altogether, Chi seems really strong. And again, we could do this all day. We could go through each card and explain why they are really good M's. Not to mention the expansion slot. Now, yes, it is impacted heavily by Mechanologist, but nonetheless, they're cards that are, necessary for Mechanologist to really be competitive viable. And even the case of Dust of Stillwater Shrine, right, which doesn't have an impactful use at this moment. It's still going to be a fantastic card if Dromai comes back around, because, just continuing to enable Miragai not to have Phantasm is basically just a straight up whatever your chain is, plus Miragai every single time, right? There's a reason this dragon sees so much support and play, because it is becoming a very linchpin card towards Draconic Illusionist, right? Making sure that first dragon doesn't have Phantasm, and then it itself not having Phantasm. So altogether, I in all honesty, think the set is very well crafted. Now, it could be a foreboding sign, right? Because if we open it up and we look at all the other cards in the set, right, the common slot especially has a decent amount of reprints or just filler or just, slight twists depending on the hero and their game plan, right? We probably have the worst set of attacks printed. That could be fun for limited. I think if they'd go again, they'd probably see a lot more use and interesting play, but as they are real just jank, right? So while the Majestics get better, get impactful, get just across the board more useful, everything else sort of dwindles because they don't want to power creep, and there's only so much they can do when we have this plethora of cards hitting the field every single set. So I do expect to see more reprints over and over again, see more just impactful cards for limited play versus the wider variety, and that's just going to be what the rare and common slot serve its purpose. We will get to the point where you will have a Majestic-centric deck rather than having these valuable, or I should say staples or joining cards in way of rares and commons that, just make up the foundation of a hero and class. We will get to the point where it is just Majestics, because that's what has to happen unless we get severe power creep. And I think LSS are doing everything in their ability to keep that in check, and that is fantastic for the longevity of the game, but it means something has to give, and it's most likely going to be the lesser rarities in a set. But altogether, again, I think Mistveil's is just a fantastic set that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy in all aspects. But again, if you only, want to enjoy limited, it's a wonderful experience. It's going to be a wonderful experience, I should say, at this current point in time, right? Because it has been specifically crafted with that in mind. If you don't even care for the set, well, you're going to have to deal with it one way or the other, because all three of these heroes have very high impact on the meta. So altogether, I think Mistveil is fantastically crafted. And then lastly, the Fable, right? It's a extremely playable Fable that I would, in all honesty, see played in all three. Just again, a -1 gives so much value over the course of a game if you can get this out early enough. I don't even think you care about transcending it, in which case the ability to maintain it seems very, very doable in all three. So yeah, there we go. It's my Mistveil thoughts. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah.